Let's welcome our next guest now, Melusi Ncala, a researcher from Corruption Watch, who gives us insight into a report to be released at 10 a.m. today. It's called "It's Time to Act." I'd like to quote an excerpt which says that the report highlighted cases that ordinary South Africans brought to our doors, allowing us to share that the problem areas of corruption are, among others, the South African Police Service, municipalities and schools. We told a story of how these focus areas were plagued by procurement irregularities, by bribery, embezzlement of fund and theft of resources, as well as irregularities in employment. So that's just a small snippet from the report, and we'll talk a little bit more now with Melusi. As I mentioned, he is from Corruption Watch. Melusi, thanks so much for your time. Thanks very much for coming into Morning Live.
Thank you for having me, Leah.
So we talk about schools. Let's start off right there, as being highlighted as one of the biggest problem areas in South Africa. It's corruption, also this increase in sextortion. Where is there an increase, and what are we talking about? How does it actually happen, and how big is this increase from last year?
Well, as members of public know who follow us, we have been doing a schools campaign for about 5 years now. And initially when the program started, we were looking at complaints where ordinary people would complain about officials stealing food parcels that is meant for kids. As the program continued, we started getting more complaints about different areas pertaining to procurement. And last year, with the launch of the first analysis of corruption trends report, we hinted at sexual harassment as a form of corruption that we call sextortion. So what happens is children are sexually exploited by officials, teachers or principals who say that they will give them marks or give them promotions to a next grade if they only give them sexual favors.
In return for sexual favors.
Yes.
And this is rife in schools. Melusi, sorry, I ask you again, are we finding a major increase in this?
Well, I mean, if you consider that the number of reports have increased by about 2% since we last covered this matter, well, at least in this first half, we have about 3.1% of the reports, so it is quite significant for us.
Yeah, which in 2017 was 0.3%, as viewers are looking at on the screen right now. And this in itself is frightening. But then again, it also could be the fact that people are speaking out more about it. Perhaps maybe with the advent of people taking to social media, talking about their stories and also reporting it to Corruption Watch, this could be a reason why it's increasing.
Yes, I mean, we saw in the past 6 months stories in the media where we learn of children that are being sexually violated by principals, but then it also extended to some forensic officers within the SAPS doing likewise. So, you know, as much as it is quite disheartening, it's quite tragic, it doesn't surprise us much.
Yeah, which in itself is tragic, because as a society, if we're not surprised by that, then I'm not sure what has to happen for us to be surprised about anything. Let's quickly look at municipalities now, both procurement, corruption and vehicle licensing. So we'll start with the irregularities in procurement in the municipalities. Substantial growth in cases, increasing from 17.5% to a staggering 45.3%. How did this happen? I mean, this is ridiculous.
Well, I mean, I think the Auditor General released a report earlier as well this year, speaking about irregular expenditures. So when we have to think about the problems that our municipalities are faced by, when we saw this, you know, it basically told the story of businesses who are in cahoots with some officials in municipalities. So these businesses are more than willing to pay a bribe to get that tender, and the officials are willing to give that, whether those companies meet the criteria or not.
Yeah, and that's a big worry, because at the end of the day, you know, we just had an interview in the previous hour with the Deputy Minister of Cogta talking about this South African story where they're bringing into the municipalities the municipal infrastructure support agent. I'm not sure if you know much about this, but they're coming in to try and sort out the municipalities, provide technical support teams that have engineers, town planners, and they're trying to get rid of corruption and all other issues that'll be there for about 3 years. Do you know much about it? I mean, can this actually help in all of this?
Well, I mean, I don't know a great deal about it, but it's encouraging to hear that, you know. This is an area that we continue to receive reports of corruption in municipalities. And not only is it in procurement, but it's also in employment. So it just tells you that indeed there's a lot to be done in this space. And this intervention, whatever we try, as long as it comes from a place where it seeks to hold people accountable and it seeks to have a transparent system of governance, then we can only hope for the best.
Yeah. Melusi, I'm going to ask you to just pause for a sec. We're going to get our news to our viewers at 8 o'clock and we'll continue this conversation. There's a lot more to talk about. We're going to talk next on vehicle licensing and corruption in that area, and I think you'll be surprised at some of these statistics that are coming out as well. So please do stay tuned. This interview with Corruption Watch will continue after our news at 8, but right now I'll hand you to Sakina for the details.